Electric cars are fully part of mainstream motoring these days, so much so that the Renault Megane, traditionally one of the top-selling cars in Europe, is now electric only, and it's called the Megane E-Tech. Other car companies are doing things a little bit differently. Seat and sporty sister brand Cupra still make their Leon with petrol power, but Cupra also makes this, the electric-only Born, possibly in recognition of the fact that not everybody has a charger they can plug their car into. The Cupra is also a more overtly sporty car. It's not quite what we would call a hot hatch, while the Megane follows a more traditional family hatchback brief. That's not to say it isn't striking looking with its bold headlight design and high-waisted profile. It's just the angular design of the Cupra is a bit more dynamic. And yet, in the specs we have here, these two cars are separated by just over £100 and are almost exactly the same size and deliver almost identical performance. The Cupra is based on the same platform that underpins the Volkswagen ID.3, but it promises a little more hot hatch action compared with the rather staid-looking Volkswagen. The one we have here is the top spec V3 and it costs just over £38,000. Equipment highlights include 12-way adjustable electric seats with a massage function, but even the entry-level car gets luxuries such as wireless smartphone charging, adaptive cruise control, a rear-view camera, and a 12-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The Megane, meanwhile, is more of a traditional family hatchback, but it's on a new electric car platform that also underpins the larger SUV Aria from sister brand Nissan. There's a launch edition which has every bell and whistle, but it's this techno trim that will eventually be the top spec, and it's just over £38,000 as well. And remember that £100 we spoke about? It's this car that's £100 more. Similar to the Born, the Megane is well equipped even in entry-level spec, with all cars getting kits such as rear-view camera, dual-zone climate control, a heated steering wheel and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, though you have to upgrade to the Techno spec to get wireless phone charging and built-in sat-nav. Then again, you get keyless entry as standard on the Megane, while it costs extra on the Cupra. Both cars will charge impressively quickly if you can find a fast enough charger. The Renault has a DC rapid charging capability of 130 kilowatts, the Cupra 135, which means you'll get an 80% charge in approximately 30 minutes, which is what we would expect from a modern EV, and in real world terms that is about 160 miles. On the 7.4 kilowatt domestic charging socket that most EVs spend their charging time plugged into, both cars will give you a full tank of volts in around 8 hours. When it comes to boot space, on the face of it, the Megane looks better because it's got 440 litres, whereas the Cupra's got 380 litres. That's because the Megane is front-wheel drive and the electric motor is in the front, whereas with the Cupra, the electric components, a lot of them anyway, are underneath the boot floor. Thing is though, the majority of the space in the Megane's boot is in depth, meaning there's an irritatingly high lip to pull stuff over. The Cupra, meanwhile, has a much smaller load lip. Both cars are pretty generous when it comes to rear seat space, however, and both have a fully flat floor with no hump for a transmission tunnel, which will no doubt please any middle seat passengers. Of the two though, it's the Megane that's slightly less roomy in the rear, and the rising door window line makes it a touch gloomier too. Up front, both cars are suitably snazzy and high-tech, but it's this, the Cupra Born, that feels like a more premium product. There's plenty of soft-touch materials and these copper bronze detailing bits here and there dotted around the cabin just help to make it stand apart from other car interiors. The absence of buttons is a big frustration though. For example, the touchpads on the steering wheel are too easy to catch by accident, and the unlit climate controls and volume sliders are really awkward to use. And perhaps even worse is the fact that you can't adjust the car's drive mode without a trip through several sub-menus. When you jump into the Megane, it's this enormous pair of screens that first catches your attention, but it's a little bit of style over substance because the driver's display here isn't all that configurable, and the 9-inch touchscreen actually seems a little bit small. At least there are some actual physical buttons for key controls, such as the multi-sense button on the steering wheel that lets you toggle easily between the various drive modes. The infotainment system itself, meanwhile, is a Google-developed setup with excellent voice integration, plus an estimated battery level at your destination when you're using the sat-nav. You'd be pretty hard pressed to tell the difference between the two cars from the way they drive. The Megane has slightly more horsepower at 220 versus the Cupra's 204, but the Megane 0 to 60 time is 7.5 seconds versus the Cupra's 7.3 seconds. That's possibly because the front-wheel drive setup in the Megane means it has a tiny little bit less traction under hard acceleration than the rear-wheel drive Cupra as the weight transfers away from the front wheels. In everyday driving though, aside from the occasional scrabble for grip from an inside front wheel when pulling out of a junction, the Megane feels very well composed. Renault says it's worked hard at keeping the weight low for the Megane, and it reaps the rewards with surprisingly agile handling. It rides fairly smoothly, there's plenty of grip and not too much in the way of body roll, though the ultra-responsive steering does take a bit of getting used to. As for efficiency, Renault's official figures are 280 miles for range, which equates to 4.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to achieve that. Now it is winter, which reduces battery performance in electric cars, but in the same conditions, we've been getting a better figure from the Cupra Born, which has the same size battery. Even so, we're still not getting the full claimed 263 miles, but a more impressive result than the Megane achieves. Talking of the Cupra, there's a surprise here. Given that the Born is supposed to be the sportier of the two, you'd think its handling would be better, especially given its rear-wheel drive layout. That should make it feel more sporty, but it just doesn't feel that different to the Megane. In many ways that's a good thing because the Megane handles very impressively, but given that the Cupra is actually trying to be sporty and fun to drive, it's almost a disappointment. The ride is also firmer and more fidgety in the Cupra than the Megane, both on country roads and around town. It's never uncomfortable, but we suspect the optional adaptive dampers would make it rather more comfortable around town. But of course, this costs around £800 extra. Helping to cancel out that occasionally fidgety ride though are these seats, which are really comfortable and supportive. And if you go for the top spec V3 trim, they're also massaging, which is great for those really long journeys or really long filming days. Another area where the Megane beats the Born is that it has paddles on the steering wheel that allow you to adjust the level of regenerative braking, and the Cupra only offers a single level of braking battery regen. It's a close run thing then, but we reckon the Megane beats the Cupra in virtually every single objectively measurable area, apart from fuel efficiency. That's not to say the Cupra Born isn't still a brilliant electric car, and if you want something that's a bit sporty and a little bit special, then you certainly wouldn't feel shortchanged if you went for the Cupra. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're considering buying a Renault Megane E-Tech, a Cupra Born, or indeed any car, head to CarGurus.co.uk to find loads of great deals for sale from top-rated dealers, and with our super clever pricing technology, we'll even tell you whether it's a good deal or not.